Hey everybody, Mariko Realtor with BRIDGEWELL Real Estate Group, and welcome back to the BRIDGEWELL Group YouTube channel. For those of you guys that haven't been here before, my name is Mariko and I'm a realtor based in the Vancouver and Coquitlam areas of British Columbia, Canada. I talk about all things real estate, whether it's seller tips, buyer tips, real estate news, updates, whatever. Everything about real estate is on my channel, so definitely make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Today's video, I wanted to do an extension of one of the ones that I've done recently on leaseholds versus freehold properties in the Lower Mainland. It was super cool experience. I was asked by Global TV, which is a local TV station, to talk about this, and so that was a really great experience. I will definitely leave a link to the video that I posted on the Global TV segment so you guys can check it out. We really just ran through the basics in an interview style video on what you need to know about leaseholds and freeholds and what opportunities there are with leaseholds, but also what risks there are with leaseholds, just so that you guys can be educated about what it really means to own a leasehold property. But I did want to do this video because I wanted to be able to control the dialogue a little bit more and give you a really in-depth idea of what it means to have a leasehold type of ownership versus a freehold type of ownership, and maybe when it works for people and when it doesn't. So starting off with the terms in general, leasehold versus freehold, really that's talking about the ownership of the land itself. So when it is a leasehold type of property, you don't own the land. You are buying a lease for the unit or the building, but you don't own the land itself. When it is a freehold property, you actually have title to the land itself. So you own the unit or you own the building that the land is on, and you own the land. So I would say that a lot of the times, people will say that freeholds are going to appreciate more. And, generically, that is true. When you look at your BC assessments and you look at e-value, where is most of the value? It's always in the land value. So obviously owning the land is going to mean that it is very likely that that property is going to appreciate more than when you own a lease and you don't actually own the land itself. Going back a little bit to leaseholds, when you have a leasehold type of property, like I said, you're essentially buying a lease. It is very common to see a 99-year term lease. And so in the actual practicality of how this would work is a lot of the times these leasehold lands are owned by the city, say like the city of Vancouver for some parts of South Vancouver, or say False Creek. There's, UBC, University of British Columbia, some of that is leasehold. There's Simon Fraser University, and that's actually owned by the university itself. So there's pockets of leasehold land that essentially can only be owned by those governing bodies. So SFU, UBC, the city of Vancouver as examples. So me, myself, as an owner wanting to purchase in those areas, I cannot own that land. So what happens instead is you have, say, developers like Bosa, for example, or Polygon. They approach take Simon Fraser University as an example. They approach SFU, who are the landowners, and they say, okay, I want to build property on your land, and I'm going to buy a lease, which in most cases, like I said, is a 99-year lease. And I'm going to prepay that. So they're prepaying the lease. And then what happens is they build these units and then they sell part of their lease. So when you are a buyer buying a leasehold property, you are essentially buying that lease. So that's how that works. There's also prepaid versus non-prepaid. So in a situation like SFU, for example, it's very common to see, or really all it is a prepaid lease. Where you'll see more non-prepaid leases, that is often like Aboriginal land. And so in that situation there, the important thing to note is that whoever is building that property is paying only a small portion of what that lease cost is. So as a person purchasing that property after the fact, you're going to have monthly or maybe annual lease payments because it's a non-prepaid lease. So as somebody looking to purchase a leasehold property, that is something that's very, very important to pay attention to, is whether it's a prepaid leasehold or whether it's a non-prepaid leasehold. So that kind of wraps up the different types of leaseholds to be aware of. Of course, generically, whether it's freehold or leasehold, you always want to pay attention to whether it's strata or non-strata. So strata meaning more like a condo and a townhouse, and a non-strata meaning more like a detached single-family home. And so that really wraps up the different types of ownership. So you have freehold, you have leasehold, you have prepaid leaseholds, you have non-prepaid leaseholds, and then you have strata or non-strata. So when you see that bigger picture of things, really what it comes down to is people always ask, well, are leaseholds going to appreciate? And it's like, okay, well, generically, yes. It's pretty safe to say that a freehold property is going to appreciate more than a leasehold property. But I have had many, many clients, specifically at SFU, for example, because it's an area that I work in quite frequently, that have made lots of money in appreciation. And so it's not to say that leaseholds never appreciate. It's just that they likely will not appreciate as much as a freehold property. But with that being said, you are purchasing a lease, right? So you are not purchasing title to land. And so you are buying it at a much lower cost than if you were to purchase a freehold property. So there are definitely a lot of opportunities for buyers to purchase in a prime location, say like False Creek, or in, North Burnaby, where if you went down the street to Brentwood, prices would easily be, $100,000, $200,000 more for a similar condo in a high-rise building compared to SFU. The price difference is substantial. And so you get to purchase in a often very, very prime location at a discount amount. So yeah, you're going to sell it for less, but you're also buying it for less. So it's all relative in that sense. And at the end of the day, if location is something that is very, very important to you as a buyer and you have a limited budget, then, I wouldn't necessarily write off leaseholds. They might actually be a very, very good option for you. Another thing that I would say when you're looking at leaseholds is, to make an educated decision on whether or not it's going to have some form of long-term value, you really have to pay attention to the length of the lease. And so when I'm talking about 99-year leases, it means that that lease is in place for 99 years. But as you get closer and closer to that lease expiry date, it becomes more and more concerning for your next future buyer, because what happens when that lease runs out? It needs to be renegotiated. There may be, additional costs to that. It's an unknown factor. So paying attention to the length of the lease and purchasing into a lease that is very, very early on is going to be beneficial for you, and probably have a higher likelihood of that appreciation over a period of time than one that is going to have a lease expire very, very soon. With that lease expiry in mind as well, you also have to factor in the financing side of things. So most of the time with leasehold properties, from what I know and what I've heard from mortgage brokers, it's not necessarily overly difficult compared to a freehold property, but it's just like, with strata properties, they're going to ask for strata documents. With a leasehold property, they're going to ask for the ground lease. They're going to ask for the head lease. So there's going to be additional documents that they're going to have to review. But for them, the biggest thing that they're going to be paying attention to is the lease expiry. And it's because, going into a little bit of financing terminology and making it maybe more complex than it needs to be for this particular video, a standard amortization period is 25 years for a mortgage. But when you are dealing with a leasehold property, the banks typically will only do an amortization less 5 years of the lease. So what that means is, in a standard situation where there's a 25-year amortization, if there's only 25 5 years left in the lease, they have to minus 5 years for your amortization that you can qualify for, which means you're at a 20-year amortization. And essentially that amortization means that you have to pay off your mortgage within that period of time. So when you're shortening the period of time that you have to pay your mortgage off, that's obviously going to impact likely your mortgage payments, or you're going to have to put more money down. So you just have to keep that in mind. Again, coming back to like paying attention to the lease expiry and when that expires is going to be very, very important for you. And so that's really the biggest thing that I think that I would focus on with regards to these type of properties, and bringing it all together for you guys. Freehold, you own the land. Leasehold, you don't own the land. Leaseholds are going to be a discounted price. So lower price is what you buy it for, likely lower price is what you sell it for relative to a freehold property where you're going to be, you know, paying more money for it initially, but it has a higher likelihood to appreciate because you own that land value. But if you are looking to get into a prime location at a discount, then a leasehold property could be a really, really nice opportunity for you as a buyer. And then if you are going to be purchasing a leasehold property, please just make sure that you are paying attention to the lease expiry, so the term of the lease and whether or not that's going to affect you in terms of your mortgage qualifications. So checking with a mortgage broker before you write the offer on that. And again, during the subject removal process, or if you can get a hold of these documents when you actually write the offer, slightly before you write the offer itself, making sure that you have all of the extra documentation that goes along with the leasehold, like the ground lease and the head lease. And of course, if it is a leasehold strata property, also obtaining all of those strata documents like you usually would. So yeah, guys, I hope that this was a helpful video for you on the difference between leasehold and freeholds. If you guys have any questions about land or types of ownership in the Lower Mainland, if you're interested in Simon Fraser University, there's definitely a lot of opportunities up there that my clients take, or other leasehold properties in the area, like I said, False Creek or parts of Fairview in Vancouver, parts of South Van, and then UBC as well. Definitely let me know, because with leaseholds, it is extremely important that you have somebody that knows how to read these lease documents so that they can guide you properly. And especially if it's a strata property, it's that double whammy. You want to make sure that you have somebody that can read the lease documents and the strata documents for you and actually be able to identify any red flags or things that aren't necessarily normal. So I am your go-to girl in the Lower Mainland if that's what you are looking for. So definitely feel free to reach out to me anytime. Again, my name is Mariko. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. We have lots of videos that are similar and educational to this, and give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it. And of course, if you have any recommendations or things that you want me to talk about in the future, leave a comment for me down below. I try and get to the comments as best as I possibly can, and I also try and answer any questions down in the comments below as well. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and have a great day. Thank you. Bye.